Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Cassandra Duffill. Thank you for joining me today. Tell me, have you ever put your heart and soul into creating an offer in your business and then it didn't sell, no one bought it, and you just felt absolutely gutted? You thought this was a great idea, you loved it, you put passion into this offer, and then no one wanted it. I know, been there myself, as many of you have. So today we are going to talk about how do you create offers that actually sell? How do we create offers that actually sell? I've got a few points I've written down that I want to take you through. Let's start with why making sales and converting sales is hard in a wellness business. Okay. It's a common problem. And there's a few elements to it. It's like the layers of an onion a little bit. But the first one is the fact that we don't like selling. As an industry, we don't like selling. We're humble. We're humble to a fault. We don't like putting ourselves out there. We don't like speaking the benefits of what we do. We can find that really hard. Also, I think that most of us could point to past experiences of sales that were less than positive. Perhaps we felt like we were manipulated. Perhaps we spent money on something and didn't get results from it. Perhaps we bought something and regretted it. And there's different ways that people can sell. And I know there are some processes that are used that, honestly, some of them are akin to brainwashing in my book. And they really convince us into buying things by guilt and other ways. And then after the fact, we regret it. So we've had experiences as well. We can have had these experiences that make us loathe sales. We don't want to do sales because look what sales do. They push people into things they don't want to buy. They make them regret they ever purchased it. Now, I want to change your mind on that today because I think sales can be done in a way that is genuine, that is ethical. I call it soulful sales, and I will take you through that today. But before we get to that, we've got to talk about sales because, my friend, you have a business, okay? You have a wellness business. You need to make sales or you are not a business. You need to make revenue. If you struggle to make sales in your business, you are going to find it really hard to grow. So you need to find a way, a process that makes it easier for you so you can make sales confidently. And part of this is us and part of this is our offers. So we'll cover both of those today. Now, we can really struggle to convert for those reasons. We don't like making sales, we don't like talking about sales, and we struggle to make that offer. But after what I share with you today, it's going to be so much easier. One of the first points we need to make is we need to make a shift, okay, in how we think about sales and the way we're addressing them in our business. We need to move from transactional to transformational. What I mean by that is in the past, you've been experiencing sales that are transactional. They're trying to fill a sales quota. They're trying to sell a certain amount of widgets. Okay, so the key is transactions for them. You're just dollars in the door. They're trying to hit a sales target. They don't care if they're trying to push a round peg in a square hole. They need the numbers and you're a number. Okay, that's the kind of sales that we're used to, and that's the kind of sales that doesn't work for us. We need to move to sales that are transformational. What that means is when we're talking about our offers, we're talking about what it does for the client, the outcomes that they can receive, the results that they're going to get. When we place things in that way and then we make an offer, we don't look at it as selling, we look at it as making an offer. I have this thing, it's going to do these great things for you. I think it'd be a really great fit, but it's up to you whether you want to come on board or not. That is a very ethical way to sell. You're not trying to push a round peg in a square hole. You're not saying, look, I've got this thing, and if you don't do it, you're going to be sick forever. You're never going to be well again unless you come and work with me. That's not ethical. Okay, that's not how we want to operate. So moving from that transactional to transformational is one of the first things you need to do. I also talk about a concept that I call selling oranges versus apples. And if you've been in my world for a while, you might have heard me talk about this before. We can be thinking that we have the right offers when really we don't. Okay, if we are selling oranges, but our ideal clients want apples, you are never going to sell any oranges. Instead of thinking about your offers and the things that you sell in terms of what you think is a good idea. Okay, we need to think in terms of what our clients actually want and actually need. We can have blinkers on. We can be looking from our perspective and think, gee, I would love to be able to sell this. I'd love to put together all of these meal plans. Okay, I enjoy doing that and I'd love to do that. But unless there's someone on the other end as a client or a customer who wants to buy that, that product won't sell. What we need to look at is from the client point of view. What does that client actually need? Maybe they do need meal plans from you, but maybe they need more than meal plans, because meal plans alone are only a piece of the puzzle. Maybe they need shopping lists to go with it. Maybe they need family-friendly meal plans. Maybe they need budget-friendly meal plans. Maybe they need a high-end service where you not only plan it and give them a shopping list, but maybe you go and do the shopping for them. I have a number of nutritionist clients who actually do that, and it can be very lucrative. So there's lots of different ways that you can be delivering services that make it exactly what your ideal client needs. So think about it from their point of view. Do they really need this thing that you're selling? Okay. If it's a no, well, what do they need? How can you change it? What can you be offering that actually will meet their needs? Then we want to be having a look at how you communicate your offer. I see this a lot where practitioners, because we were looking from our perspective, okay, I always talk about we've got our blinders on, we're looking from our point of view instead of our ideal clients. Because we're coming from our point of view, we're looking at our offer going, right, this package is great because it's got 6 consultations, pre-done meal plans, it's got treatment protocols that are created for every person individually, and you're going to work with me for 12 weeks. That sounds good to us. We go, oh, that sounds like a lot of value. It means absolutely nothing to our ideal clients, particularly new ones who've never worked with someone like us before. It means nothing. What we need to be talking about is the fact that we know it's going to take 12 weeks for you to get some progress on this health condition. So we have the exact package that's going to help you with that. Across that time, you're going to get a selection of support that's going to help you improve your results. See how we need to start talking away from inclusions and instead talk towards the results. Because there are 6 consultations across 12 weeks, you are going to get the consistency of care and the ongoing support you need to finally turn around that health problem. Can you see how that's different? So results versus inclusions. We need to start turning everything we do, from how we talk about our offers to the way we market it. Everything in our business needs to start to flip that coin and look back at us from the perspective of our ideal client. So how can we be putting these offers out in a way that is ethical and in a way that makes us feel good? There's nothing worse than getting off a discovery call with someone and you feel ick. You feel like, oh, that didn't go well. Oh, I felt really bad doing that. That's not what you want. Okay, so how can we make sure that we are staying in ethical sales, soulful sales all the time? I've got a few points here. First one is honesty. When you are being completely honest about what you offer, it's getting in complete integrity, isn't it? It's completely ethical. There's nothing to feel ick about if you are being honest. The second point is alignment. If you are offering that client the exact right offer, exact right solution that they need for whatever their problem is, again, there is no ick. You only get the ick when you're trying to push that round peg in the square hole. When you've got the client who really only needs to see you for 4 weeks, but you're pushing them into a 12-week program because you want a higher ticket sale. That's not ethical, and that's going to give you the ick. The next thing we need to set is realistic expectations. Okay, and this does fall under our honesty umbrella, but well worth noting, we need realistic expectations. We're not guaranteeing anything. Okay, results that you're giving are examples. Everybody varies, but it's okay to say, look, the average client with me after 12 weeks feels this or experiences these changes, and the average client after 6 months tends to experience these changes. That's totally ethical. We feel good saying those things. Then the final point I like to talk about and just wrap that up is what I call sell what serves. And I did mention that before when we talked about that alignment, but sell what serves. This means that you give them exactly what suits. Even if it's not the highest ticket product that you offer, okay, you give them the one that suits the outcome. Now, what I mean here is it's not always about offering them the cheapest. It's about offering them the right one. It is not our job to judge whether somebody can afford what we offer or not. It's their job to understand that, okay? And I think we can get ourselves into trouble if we try to judge that ourselves. It's your role to go, look, these are the options, and this one here is probably the best right fit for you. This cheaper one here might actually get you some traction as well. But for where you're at, I think this one here, not the highest end offer, but this one here in the middle might be the one that's the best suited. That's totally okay to say that. And it's not up to you to think, oh, can they afford it? Can they not afford it? We can often taint our perception with where we're at. So let's say we're having a phase where we're a little bit less abundant financially than we'd like to be. Maybe we're budgeting a little bit hard. We're a bit low on our revenue, a bit low on our client flow, and we're in a little bit of financial scarcity. We can tend to, I call it, paint everybody with the same brush and think that everyone else in the world is going through the same thing we are. It's actually just not true. There are always people with money to spend on things that they find important. Actually, I want to share a little story that really brings this home. And this is from a long, long time ago. In my early 20s, I was working as an interior decorator and I was working out of a prestige carpet shop here on the Gold Coast. And gosh, I loved that job. But anyway, side note. And this was a very prestige carpet shop. We had some lower priced products, but we really were here for the prestige market. We had a gentleman come in one day and my boss, the lady who owned the shop, walked up and greeted him at the door. He walked in, he was an elder gentleman. He came in a pair of thongs, stubby shorts that were a bit grotty, a bit grimy, and a tank top that was a bit faded, a bit old. So he looked like he'd just come from, doing a bit of hard trade, labor type situation, a bit of a job in that realm maybe. But he walks in and he takes a beeline for the most expensive carpet we have in that shop. Carpet that started at $1,000 a meter, beautiful carpet, but very expensive carpet. Without actually asking him what he wanted, what his budget was, my boss says to him, oh, you might be more comfortable down over here. We've got some great specials. And she walked him to the specials board where everything was discounted, run out, cheap, or cheaper at least. This man did his banana. He absolutely had a banana. And he was yelling in the shop, how dare you judge me and assume what I can or cannot afford? It is not your place. It is not your job. How dare you? How dare you? And he ended up turning around and seeing me on the other side of the room. And he pointed, he said, you, I want to work with you. I will not work with her. I'll work with you. And so I've come over and I apologize. I said, look, I'm really sorry. No offense meant by it. She was just trying to show you our new specials. What are you actually interested in? And we went back to the high-end products. And he ended up purchasing those high-end products. And when I went to his address to help measure up and to help with the interior design, he wanted help with that as well. He lived in one of the most expensive buildings on the Gold Coast, in the penthouse of the most expensive building. After we'd finished measuring up that penthouse, he said, oh, I've got another one I want you to measure up while you're here. Is that all right? Yep, absolutely. This is actually 2 towers next to each other of the same complex. So we went into the second tower, all the way up to the penthouse again. And we measured that one that he also owned. This is the chap who's still walking around in his thongs and stubby shorts. And so I've measured up everything and, I've got no question about funds or whatever. That's his job, not mine. And we get chatting. He offered me a glass of water. Turns out that this elderly man used to own the entirety of what is now Hope Island and Sanctuary Cove here on the Gold Coast. He was a farmer all of his life and he inherited a family farm. And it was the area, hectares and hectares of it, that had been bought by developers to create Sanctuary Cove and Hope Island. He was very, very well off. Very well off. But, he was a farmer by trade and that's how he presented himself. So that was really interesting to me, that this is what taught me. You cannot judge a book by its cover. You just don't know. And it's not our job to judge. It's our job to offer what makes sense for the client, what is the best solution for the problem that they have. And it's their job to then go, that doesn't suit my budget or that does suit my budget. And then you can offer them other options accordingly. So I hope you found that really interesting, but I just wanted to share with you that lesson that I learned, because I think there's a lesson in that for all of us. I think we all can tend to judge people based on what we think they can afford, and that's not for us at all. So back to the concept of how can we create offers that actually sell? Everything I've said today blends into that process, because what you have to do is communicate that offer in a way that tells people what it's actually going to do for them. Instead of saying it's 6 consultations over 12 weeks, you need to be saying it's going to take you from this uncontrollable gut dysfunction to a calm, controlled gut. you need to be stating what's actually happening and what's going to occur in ways that are honest, in ways that really state the actual fact. Okay, we don't want to be exaggerating. In my practice, I used to tell people very openly, look, within 6 weeks, your gut will be a lot better. You're going to feel better than you do now. Will it be completely healed? No, 6 weeks is not long enough, but you will be feeling better. That is completely honest. It is completely ethical, and everybody was very happy with that. So think about how you're saying that. Now, when you are talking about your offers on your sales pages, how you're marketing them, etc., remember always to lead with the transformation, the results first. Okay, you want to lead with those. When you're sharing the inclusions, think about why that inclusion is important to that client. We can often build in inclusions based on what we think needs to be there, purely because we think we need a consultation every 2 weeks and it's 12 weeks long, so there's going to be 6 consultations. Well, do you actually need that many consults? Or after the first couple, when they're getting a bit better, can you leave 4 weeks in between? So think about that when you're building out your offers. Then put it in your marketing speak and in the way you're talking to clients in terms of why it's a benefit for them. Okay, maybe the 6 consultations across 12 weeks is the best for them because you've seen people get better results when they have ongoing accountability, when they have that ongoing nurturing, when they have that ongoing support of a professional through the journey. Maybe you have check-ins, maybe they're email, maybe they're phone calls, and you do weekly check-ins because you know that having someone who's got your back is really important to the healing. Think about why those things are in there and why it matters to your ideal client. So the difference between creating an offer that actually sells and one that tanks, firstly, you need a market to sell it to. If you're creating something that doesn't suit the niche that you have, it's never going to sell. If you're creating something when you don't have a very big email list or you don't have clients on the books, it's going to be really hard to sell. You need people to sell to. So concentrate on building your books, building your email list so you have that primed audience ready to buy. Then it's how you communicate your offer. Transformational versus transactional, okay? Results versus inclusions. Writing these things up, speaking them in a way that actually promotes the benefit of that offer. And then in creating offers that sell, it's the closing of the sale. For those of you on discovery calls, we already talked about ways that we can be ethical. We need to be ethical in integrity always. We need to be honest. We need to have alignment. We need to talk about the results in a way that is honest. Okay, we're not going to guarantee that in 6 weeks your problem's solved, but we're going to share what they will achieve. So we want to be coming from this place always of authenticity and integrity. I guarantee you, if you don't like sales now, if you start using these processes and these frameworks and start to operate from a really ethical place of sales, you will start to love it. The ick will be gone. It doesn't feel salesy. It doesn't feel slimy because everything that you're saying is the truth. You're not trying to convince anybody, manipulate anyone, push them into doing something. If you think about it honestly, that is why you don't like sales. Because somebody at some point in time has tried to manipulate you, push you into something, guilt trip you into something. That is not the way to sell. But I know a lot of people who sell that way, and I know there's, mentors even in this industry who sell that way. So we don't want to be moving into that. All right, I hope this has been a good episode for you. I hope you've gotten a lot out of it. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great week. Bye-bye.